Coming up on the newscast, the Yoon administration unveiled its first planned tax code revision. Emphasis is placed on drastically increasing support for companies to expand investment and employment. The Foreign Ministry briefed President Yoon on its core policy plans. They include plans to deepen relations with the U.S. and China and Japan, as well as measures to deal with North Korean provocations. The major change to the Changgyeonggung Palace and Jongmyo Shrine, the two cultural heritage sites from the Joseon Dynasty, will be connected again. Hello and welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Che. Let's begin with our top story. The Yoon administration unveiled a tax code revision. It's designed to help the nation overcome a complex crisis by supporting businesses and people's livelihoods. Jeong starts us off.
Revitalizing the economy by promoting growth led by the private sector. That's the crux of South Korea's latest revision to the tax code published on Thursday with the goal of improving corporate competitiveness.
The tax revision has put an emphasis on drastically increasing support for companies to expand their investment and employment. First, the taxation system will be reformed to meet global standards.
Lowering the top rate of corporate tax from the current 25% to 22% is one of the main changes. Also, the government will help smaller businesses by putting more companies into the lowest corporate tax bracket. Also in the spotlight are changes in the real estate taxes. The government is looking to ease the property tax burden for people amid runaway home prices. In South Korea, people or companies with large real estate assets get an extra tax bill for holding properties on top of the standard property tax. For owners of 2 or more residential properties, the threshold before having to pay this extra tax will be raised from the current 600 million won to 900 million won, which is roughly $700,000. Also, for those who own just one home, it'll be raised next year from the current 1.1 billion won to 1.2 billion won, which is just over $900,000. And just for this year, it'll be temporarily raised to 1.4 billion won. The way of calculating property ownership tax will also change. Currently, greater tax rates are applied for owning more houses, but under the change, tax rates will depend on the house price. An expert says this can make property taxes better balanced.
Currently, a person who has 3 houses worth a total of 2 billion won will pay more taxes than another person who just owns one home worth 3 billion won. If we look at it in terms of money, it is not equitable.
Another major goal of the tax code revision is to provide more financial stability for the public amid soaring inflation. The government will reduce the tax burden on those in low-income brackets.
We will reduce the tax burden on people by expanding the range of the 2 lowest income tax brackets. But those earning more than 120 million won will see the amount they can deduct from their income tax reduced.
Chu added that for workers, more meal expenses will be exempt from tax. The limit for tax-free meals at work will be doubled to 200,000 won or roughly $150 a month. The government is also looking to help industries recover from the pandemic. To help the movie industry recover, the government is also making movie tickets tax-deductible from July next year. Those earning less than $53,000 a year can get 30% of their spending at movie theaters deducted from their income tax bill. With all these changes, the government says the tax code revision will result in a roughly $10 billion drop in tax revenue. But the finance minister says the reduction accounts for 3% of total tax revenue, which is within the usual 5% annual rise in tax revenue. The government is going to send the bill to the National Assembly by September. Jeong, Arirang News.
The government has unveiled plans to boost the semiconductor industry. This is to secure the country's position as the sector's leader and become a major global production hub. Lee Hyun tells us more.
More investment in the semiconductor industry. That's the plan announced by the Minister of Trade, Industry and Energy on Thursday while visiting a chip material factory in the city of Hwasong, south of Seoul. The blueprint to boost the chip industry includes 3 major points. First, to encourage chip-related companies to invest over 300 trillion won, or about $260 billion in the next 5 years. The administration also aims to boost government spending on essential infrastructure for chip complexes like electricity and industrial water. There will be more tax benefits too for investment in semiconductor equipment and R&D. Tax deductions for large companies that invest in equipment related to nationally strategic technologies like semiconductors will be raised by 2 percentage points to around 8 to 12%. But one expert says those rates need to go higher.
The US and European countries are trying to pass legislation to increase tax deductions for chip-related companies to 30 to 50%. If those bills pass, Korea should raise its deductions by even more.
The second point is training new talent. The government aims to train more than 150,000 people for the semiconductor industry by 2031 and designate graduate schools specializing in chip, which will entitle them to more support for instructors and class materials. The first thing they need to do, experts say, is to bring on more faculty.
Chip-related institutions these days lack faculty. One idea could be to recruit people who work hands-on in semiconductors as instructors.
Also, the government is going to work with the chip industry to establish a semiconductor institution for students, job seekers, and other workers in 2023 and train 3,600 people within 5 years. Last but not least, the government will bolster support for R&D in the next-generation logic semiconductors. It aims to increase Korea's global market share in logic chips from the current 3% to 10% by 2030. It's also going to provide some 950 billion won, or more than $700 million for feasibility studies on power semiconductors and automotive chips. Another goal is for Korea to achieve a self-sufficiency rate in semiconductor parts of 50% by 2030 by expanding support for R&D. Lee Dae-hyun, Arirang News.
The Foreign Ministry has briefed President Yoon Suk-yeol on its core policy plans. There, the South Korean leader also called for active diplomacy to meet the country's national interests. Kim Da-mi has the details.
President Yoon Suk-yeol has once again placed emphasis on the importance of economic diplomacy, pledging to do all he can to help South Korea's economy. Further, such comments came on Thursday after South Korea's foreign minister briefed President Yoon on the ministry's policy agenda.
President Yoon said economic diplomacy is what's most important. He said he will visit anywhere if it helps our economy.
He then called for active diplomacy that leads global solidarity and cooperation, as well as a diplomacy with the US, China, and Japan based on a strong Seoul-Washington alliance. Winning the city of Busan the right to host the 2030 World Expo topped the president's order to the top diplomat. The president also made sure to touch on China's backlash against South Korea's participation in reorganizing the global supply chain. Park said he also ordered active diplomacy so that China does not misunderstand, making sure that there is explanation in advance and misunderstandings can be sorted out. Park added that Seoul's participation in the IPEF and possibly in Fab 4, another US-led chip alliance that would involve Japan and Taiwan, is not to ostracize a certain country but to maximize national interests. There will also be a, quote, bold plan to stop North Korea from showing off its military capabilities.
We will lay out the roadmap for the North's denuclearization and for the normalization and fundamental development of inter-Korean relations.
During Thursday's briefing, Yoon further expressed a strong will to soften bilateral ties with Japan so that the two countries can build trust that is mutually beneficial. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
The nation's main rival parties delivered their plenary speeches marking the start of the new National Assembly session. Still, they haven't reached a full agreement on ways to share the leadership positions on the standing committees. Lee Kyung-eun has the latest.
The People Power Party has vowed full support for the Yoon Suk-yeol administration's reform drives and to prioritize people's livelihoods at this tough time. There was a key message from full leader Kwon Song-dong's speech on Thursday to mark the start of the new National Assembly term. Kwon emphasized the need to reform the national pension system, labor market, and education sector, all of which he says had been failed under the previous government. The ruling party's leader also laid out the party's vision to tackle South Korea's low growth rate and help the country lead future industries on the global stage through major deregulation.
South Korea has evolved from an industrial nation to advanced nation, and now it is aiming to become a global leading nation. But that is only possible through a partnership between the party and the government and bipartisan cooperation.
Kwon also promised to push for bills that ease the burden felt by the general public stemming from high inflation and interest rates, which was also the key message by the Democratic Party on the previous day. Though parties officially signaled the start of the new session, the standing committees remain vacant as they once again failed to finalize the leadership positions on Thursday.
We weren't able to take enough time to fully share our thoughts yesterday, so we still find ourselves at odds over the issue.
We will continue discussions tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Thursday was the second deadline imposed by the parties after they had already passed the first on Sunday. The full leaders say they will continue the discussions and aim for a deal by Friday at the latest, ahead of kickstarting with Q&A sessions with government officials next week. 이경은, Arirang News.
Shifting our focus to the COVID-19 situation here in South Korea, the nation's daily COVID-19 tally remained above 70,000. The highly contagious BA.5 subvariant now accounts for more than 50% of new cases. Authorities also confirmed the second case of BA.2.75, dubbed Centaurus, known to be the most transmissible of all. They're urging all people eligible for a second booster shot to get one. The shots are available to everyone 50 and older. Data shows the fatality rate of COVID-19 is 4 times higher for people in their 50s than those in their 40s. In September, South Korea will have the results of its first large-scale study of the country's antibody positivity rate. The KDCA expects it will help provide more accurate and scientific measures to deal with the virus. Elsewhere around the world, the European Central Bank raised its key interest rates by half a percentage point on Thursday. It is the first hike in more than a decade and a bigger increase than expected as the Eurozone grapples with high inflation. The so-called big step comes as consumer prices in the Eurozone, the 19 countries that use the euro, are soaring at the fastest rate. According to Eurostat, they reached 8.6% in June, 0.7 of a percentage points higher than 1 month earlier. Over in Italy, the Prime Minister, Mario Draghi, resigned on Thursday, leaving the country on course for an early election. He met with President Sergio Mattarella to confirm his resignation. This comes after lawmakers from 3 parties had boycotted the confidence vote in the country's Senate. Even after winning, Draghi decided to step down as it would have meant leading a fractured government teetering on the verge of collapse. Local media outlets say Mattarella would likely dissolve parliament and call for an early election in late September or October. This will be the first fall election in Italy since World War II. Russia's foreign minister seems to have suggested the possibility of expanding the country's objectives in Ukraine beyond the Donbas region in a warning to the West. Meanwhile, the U.S. announced plans to provide Ukraine with more long-range weapons and is also reviewing supplying fighter jets. Shin-Ayoung brings the updates.
Russia could be planning to expand its war in Ukraine. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov implied on Wednesday that Russia's strategy has expanded beyond the eastern Donbas region, blaming the West for supplying Ukraine with weapons.
The West is pouring more and more long-range weapons such as HIMARS into Ukraine. Well, that means the geographical tasks of the special operation will extend further from the current line.
This is the first time Lavrov has mentioned such a strategy in public. He was referring to the U.S. decision to send 4 more high-mobility artillery rocket system, or HIMARS, to Ukraine, bringing the total number to 16. The chief of staff of the U.S. Air Force said Washington and its allies are considering sending fighter jets and training Ukrainian pilots. The same day, Ukrainian First Lady Olena Zelenska appealed to the U.S. Congress to provide more air defense systems to protect Ukrainian children. In the meantime, Russia resumed gas supplies to Europe on Thursday through the Nord Stream 1 pipeline, which had been shut down for 10 days for what Russia said was routine maintenance. But its capacity is now reduced to 30%. Before the pipeline was reopened, the EU had asked member countries to slash their gas use by 15% until next spring to prevent a shortage. 신하영, Arirang News.
The nation's culture minister reported to President Yoon major work plans for the future. Among a variety of goals, the core was to transform Cheong Wa Dae into a new cultural centerpiece. Kim Bo-kyung explains further.
South Korea's new cultural landmark. That's the vision for the former presidential office, the Blue House or Cheong Wa Dae. On Thursday, Culture Minister Park Bo-kyun reported to President Yoon Suk-yeol on the 5 major goals ministry has in mind. They include turning the Blue House into a living, breathing cultural hub.
People think of Cheong Wa Dae as just a landscape, somewhere static. In the next stage, Cheong Wa Dae should be given to the people as a place that's alive.
This is the first time that the government has unveiled detailed plans for this historical place since it was opened to the public in May. Making use of the hundreds of artworks, memorabilia of former presidents, the 50,000 trees, as well as the cultural assets in the compound, the facility will become an art museum and cultural complex.
The indoor area of the main office building and the official residence will be used as an exhibition venues, like France's Versailles Palace. Yeongbing관, where large-scale meetings and official events for state guests were held, will be filled with well-known contemporary and modern artwork such as the Lee Gun-hee collection. Other main goals have also been revealed. There will be financial support for K-content to nurture 10,000 industry professionals over the next 3 years, a fund of $30 million to create more K-dramas for online streaming services, and a $3.6 billion investment to create a global content company like Disney. The ministry will also support the pure art sector, often the sources of K-culture, guarantee fair access for people with disabilities, and develop regional culture centers for balanced development. Through this financial support, South Korea aims to further establish itself as a self-powered giant. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Starting Friday, there will be a major change to the Changgyeonggung Palace and Jongmyo Shrine. The Joseon Dynasty cultural heritage sites will be connected once again. Song Yoo-jin provides a glimpse of what to expect.
The Jongno-gu district, located in downtown Seoul, has been the heart of culture in the city for the last 600 years, following the establishment of the Joseon Dynasty. It's the home to a plethora of cultural heritage locations. One of them is South Korea's first UNESCO World Heritage Site, Jongmyo Shrine, that honors kings, queens, and long-deceased royal ancestors. Another is Changgyeonggung Palace, which, in its day, often served as the residence for queens and concubines. Until the early 20th century, the two sites were connected by a forest. But that all changed under Japanese colonization.
Most people in Joseon during the early 1900s walked around or rode carriages. However, the Japanese wanted a road system centered around cars. So they decided to create new straight roads that were fit for driving. That's why this road, which is now called Yulgongno, was opened in April of 1932.
Before, Changgyeonggung Palace and Jongmyo Shrine were divided by a road and a pedestrian overpass. But now, for the first time in 90 years, they're connected once again after more than 10 years of work. The city has now replaced the road with an underpass, creating an 8,000 square meter unbroken green area linking the two sites. The area also features a restored 503-meter-long wall that had been destroyed by Japan during the colonial period, with about 20% of the material used in its construction coming from the original. The Buksinmun entrance that kings once used to unofficially visit Jongmyo Shrine from Changgyeonggung Palace has also been reconstructed. Another new addition is the 340-meter-long walkway where visitors can take a look at the palace and shrine closely. Both the general public and the city government are excited about the project.
I decided to visit here during my stay in Seoul because it's historically meaningful that an area that was ruined under Japanese occupation has reopened.
This project helped us restore a part of our history which was disconnected by Japanese colonization. Also, in the past, palaces and shrines were only accessible to the royal family. By opening this area to the public, we hope more people can better understand the history revolving around these heritage sites.
The area will be fully open to the public from Friday. 송유진, Arirang News.
The Boryong Mud Festival is one of the biggest summer events in South Korea. This year it's on for a full month until August 15th. Kim Hyun-sung was there to take the plunge.
Mud doubles the fun. Boryong Mud Festival is back on. For the past 25 years, this annual summer mud fest has been one of the most looked forward to and biggest events of the year in South Korea. Here at the festival at Daecheon Beach in Chungcheongnam-do Province, it's all about getting dirty in the mud.
And the best part is, anyone can join in the fun. Language or age doesn't matter. Families, friends, and children have come all across the country and from all across the world to right here in Boryong to get a feel for this muddy fun.
We thought it was really a good idea and it's fun, so I heard it's good for the skin too, so we enjoy it.
Too. We don't mind getting dirty, and so that was like the perfect event for us.
It's so much fun. I love the mud.
This is so much fun and there are so many things to do. I want to go to the K-pop concert afterwards.
There are a bunch of games in this one mud pit. I learned a lot of new games, meet a lot of new people, so it's pretty cool.
I came with my brothers and my mom. The slides were exciting and slippery.
This year, the event runs from July 16th to August 15th. Boryong City officials are expecting somewhere close to 1.2 million visitors. To prepare, they've brought in 600 tons of mud from nearby beaches. For the past 2 years, Boryong Mud Festival has been held online due to the pandemic, but now it is back in full. But once again, COVID cases are on the rise.
Right now, everybody has to wear a mask when they come in, and during the evenings we sanitize the whole place. That's how we're preparing right now, and we are a bit nervous because numbers are rising.
Boryong is famous for its tidal mudflats. But because sandy beaches are usually more popular, Boryong City officials had to get creative to attract visitors by promoting the benefits of mud. Mud is excellent at removing toxins from the skin and carbon from the air. It also keeps important sea life alive. To teach visitors about mud, an exposition runs alongside the festival. The expo also sells mud skincare products with other regional goodies offered by some 80 companies taking part in the expo. This month-long festival is also packed with K-pop concerts by the beach, fireworks, and competitions. So to get that special experience of watching a K-pop concert while your toes are dipped in the waves and have your clothes dripping in mud, there's only one place to go, and that's here at Boryong. Kim Hyun-sung, Arirang News, Boryong.
Monsoon rain has mostly tapered off and warmer temperatures will prevail tomorrow. Most parts of the country, including Seoul, will see maximum temperatures hovering around 30 degrees Celsius. Places like Arirang will be slightly hotter at 32 degrees. Keep in mind that temperatures will feel hotter due to the increased humidity levels. With the rise in temperatures, instability in the air will increase. This will cause sporadic showers nationwide, apart from eastern Gangwon-do Province and Jeju Island. The rest of the country can expect about 5 to 40 millimeters of rainfall coming and going. Thunder and lightning will also follow at times. Keep in mind that South Coast and Jeju Island will see violent winds gusting up to 10 to 16 meters per second. Morning lows in Seoul and Busan will be kicking off at 23 degrees. For the daytime, most inland regions, including Daejeon, Gwangju, and Busan, will all reach 30 degrees. Daegu will make it to 32 degrees. The entire nation will see another round of monsoon rain this coming weekend. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
It's time for us to wrap things up. As always, thank you for staying with us.